Would you like to change your life? Have more fun, more money, better relationships? Well, you are in the right place. Hi and welcome. I'm Sigrid Kaste. I'm a business marketing coach and consultant in Australia, and I regularly work with entrepreneurs and business owners to bring their business to greater heights. And often I come across one big hurdle. Change requires a step-by-step approach. And so I've asked James Spooner from the US to join me to talk about the principles on achieving really a change in your life and the principles of personal achievement, moving yourself forward. So we're jumping right into it, and we'll get James started on straight away talking about a few of the details. So let's get.
Well, what I had discovered was Napoleon Hill's byline is whatever the mind can conceive of and believe it can achieve. And at an early age, I found that whatever I seemed to really want and desire and believe that I could achieve somehow or other showed up, and usually not from the sources that I expected it. Oh, I'd have a plan or whatever, but usually it would be a kind of a happenstance. And I started to put two and two together, and I said, you know what, this type of philosophy really does work, and this type of action really does work. And so then I went on to study it and have done so over the years. Not only Napoleon Hill, but Charles Haanel. I like all of the old guys, as I call them, the Ernest Holmes and so forth. There were a whole list of these gentlemen who came from the New Thought period of time, which was, back in the 1870s, 1880s, 1890s. And most of our personal development material from our contemporaries comes and is based on that. It was all about the questioning as to, well, why do certain people achieve significant success and why do other ones not? And it all came down to, what were their predominating thoughts and how did they perceive themselves in the grand scheme of the universe? Were they a part of it or were they apart from it? So anyhow, just a little bit of background and so forth. I was fortunate enough to become affiliated with the Napoleon Hill Foundation and got to travel the world a little bit and do some presentations. And like everybody, as time goes on, and since we're talking about as much time, I don't make any bones about it. I was, able to become I guess I consider to be a multi-millionaire, at least a couple of times over and so forth. But then I also, deviated from the plans and had my ups and downs and became a negative multi-millionaire. And then went back to be able to achieve some significant levels and so forth. So a little bit about my background. I've been in the self-improvement business, being in the athletic club business and the personal development business. I was one of the first people who brought the mind, body, spirit type attitude into a health club environment and so forth. So, hopefully that gives you a little bit of background and so forth. I've since gone on to, use it as kind of a coaching program and a lot of my expertise and so forth in working with people and helping them to develop.
Yes, that's right. And you are helping people. So achieving goals is always a big part of what people are trying to do with their life, to set themselves goals. But the 17 tips that you'd like to, or that you're touching on in this program are about both business and life, about the personal achievement and going much further than that, as you've just touched on from your own experience and from your own background. And what I've created here is a couple of questions that sort of have come about in various ways. I think you've been asked questions similar to this, and I certainly have when I'm working with business owners. What the questions is what's commonly a sort of behavior that really throws major obstacles in our own path, and can we really become master communicators? Because I do know Napoleon Hill with his 17 principles certainly touches on most of these, and if we can go through these step by step perhaps and answer those from your perspective and how you have worked with your students in coaching sessions, I think that would be a great idea. And what I'll do is, before we get started, I really like your I've put the slides up here on success, because that's a big thing. People are always after success in life and in business. Give us your details on this one here, because I know that this is something that you've talked about before, James.
Well, interestingly enough, we can always take a word, and of course the word success is a primary one. This is actually from, we won't take any original things. This is from Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, who is another person that I've studied and so forth. He broke it down and took the word and made an acronym out of it. And the first thing is that people have to have a sense of direction. That's what the S represents. And a sense of direction simply means that you've got to know where you're going. I like to make the analogy that it's very simple with the GPS. And we're all pretty much familiar with the GPS, not necessarily as to how it works. And most people don't realize, but a GPS needs to have two things. It needs to know where it is right now, what's the location on the planet, and where do you want to go. And with those two bits of information, the GPS is able to do all kinds of different things, go through the satellite and so forth, and somehow or other it manages to get a person there. It needs to have a plan, but the person is really taking, the person that's participating in the GPS go from point A to point B, what they're really doing is that they're following the directions. And when they get off course, a little bit, the GPS will make some comments to it usually. In other words, turn right, turn left, do whatever. I happen to be an airplane pilot, and it happens the same way in an airplane. It doesn't talk to you, but if I get off course a little bit and stay off course, it might just be a degree or two, which means in the real world that we're going, just a little bit, to the right or to the left or whatever. Over a period of time, we can miss the target by a significant amount. I use the analogy here in the States a lot of times that if I'm flying from New York City to Chicago in my airplane and I'm 2 degrees off, I'm liable to end up either in Canada or in St. Louis, which would be hundreds of miles off course. So the sense of direction is extremely important. The U, which is an understanding, it's an understanding of why is it that you want to accomplish something. Why is it that you want to achieve it? If you don't have a significant why behind what you're doing, again, you're going to break down. And you're going to get marginal results if, in many cases, you're going to get disastrous results. The C represents courage, and a courage is pretty obvious. It simply means, the courage to go ahead and do what you really want to do. Take the direction. Take the first step. It's the old Chinese adage, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. So you have to have the courage and the fortitude to go ahead and begin the journey. And then we have to have charity. And that means that you have to be giving of yourself. You have to do it with the attitude that you're there to help somebody else achieve what they want. It goes back to what the Zig Ziglars of the world and Napoleon Hills have said. You can achieve anything in life as long as you help enough other people achieve what they want to achieve. And that's very, very true, because the world is all about, and the universe is all about, you being able to provide something and be of service to other people. And then you are compensated, in whatever way, shape, or form you look at your compensation, significantly. Then we can talk about the self-esteem. And self-esteem is something that really keeps a lot of people from not achieving the high degrees of success they want to achieve. And it really goes back to self-image. The point that I make here is a very simple one. We have a desire. The desire would be to accomplish something, or to, get something, or, achieve a high degree of income, or a Rolls Royce, or a yacht, or a boat, or something, some kind of a materialistic thing. So that's our desire. But if our belief level, which simply means that our deservability, do we deserve that? If our belief level is not consistent with our desire, then what happens, Sigrid, is that, the belief level will always trump or take over what the desire was. And, if you decide that you'd really like to make a lot of money and be a multimillionaire, but somebody told you that rich people were bad a long, long time ago, and that became a belief level, then what ends up happening is that you may go on the journey to achieve that wealth, but at some point in time, your subconscious mind, which is connected to Napoleon Hill's comment on, or belief in infinite intelligence, which would be a form of God or whatever it is, the spirit behind everything, somehow or other it's probably going to get self-sabotaged and so forth. Self-confidence, that's the ability to be able to say, hey, you know what, regardless of what anybody else says, I believe in myself. I'm going to achieve whatever degree of success I am looking for, and without any hindrances and so forth. And you go the extra mile. You stay on the path. And the last one is, of course, self-acceptance, and that's the idea that you deserve it, and that you have achieved it, and that you have accepted yourself as a person and as you are. All of us have discrepancies and so forth. We all need to probably modify our behaviors, but you really need to look at it and say, who am I right now? Okay? And then you start to work with the material that you have available to you. So hopefully that that little discussion makes some sense to you.
It certainly does. Yeah, it certainly does to me, and as I said, it comes across quite often with business owners when I deal with them that part of this is not balanced for them, and then they have the trouble of achieving or coming to the next level that they really would like to, and so we have questions coming up, and I've just put them onto the screen now to maybe use those as a bit of a guideline, James, to give us some more insights on, when people really want to achieve the next level, want to get to that goal of really creating more income in their life, how can they do that? And I think the question, there is behavior in us, and you've touched on that already just now. What is it that the major obstacles that we sort of create actually ourselves? I mean, part of that is our belief system. Go into a bit more detail there and touch on those 17 principles, because that all kind of filters into each one of these questions, I think.
Well, we'll touch on a couple of the principles. The first one is, and Napoleon Hill talks about it in his Science of Success and throughout all of his material and so forth. One of the first things is most people don't know where they want to go. And if you don't have a destination, it's like getting into a car. To make it very simple, you get into a car, and if you don't have a destination, you may start the car up and start to drive, but the only destination you're really going to have is that you're either going to run out of gas someplace along the line, or you're going to end up, and you did have a destination, at least back where you started from, back in your driveway and so forth. But one of the major things is that they don't have a destination. They don't have what Napoleon Hill, the definite chief aim. The second thing is that they don't have the desire a lot of times. They have a wish, and there's a significant difference, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, between a desire and a wish. And you have to have a burning desire. A lot of times, it's just kind of, well, I'd like to have this or I'd like to do that, and it really doesn't work out that way. There's a significant difference between a burning desire and just a kind of a casual thing. The burning desire is where you think about it most of the time. You take certain actions and so forth. And that brings up another point as to why people, Napoleon Hill explained again, he said the universe can't handle only two things. One of them is a vacuum, which means that there's nothing there, and eventually something's going to come along to fill it out, to fill that vacuum. And the other thing is inactivity. And just as an example on that, you could take a field. If you have a fertile field of ground and you're a farmer, if you don't plant something in that field, you're going to get a lot of weeds, because the birds are going to come along and they're going to drop seeds in it, and you're going to get a bumper crop of weeds. And on the other side, it is that if you don't take action, in other words, if you don't take the action to accomplish something, even if it's the wrong action initially, some action is significantly better. So there's a couple of different things there. And then you can have, one other one that I like to talk about is going the extra mile. A lot of people don't go what Hill calls going the extra mile, which is simply a matter of doing more than what you're being paid for. And he makes the analogy, and I think it's a very good one, that there's kind of with the universal intelligence or infinite intelligence, there's like a computer in the sky that's keeping track of what you do. Do you do something extra for somebody else? And where we make a mistake with that, which is quite a hindrance, is a lot of times what we do is that we do something for somebody else with the expectation that they're going to do something for us. And Hill talks about doing some things, for other people and not expecting anything to come back directly from them, although it would be nice, but you don't expect it. But you do have the belief level that because you're doing things and you're consistently doing more than what you're paid for, that this, we'll call it infinite intelligence and computer in the sky, kind of keep track of this, and eventually, and hopefully sooner than later, you'll receive the benefits in significantly greater quantity and than what you even would have expected. So those are just 2 or 3 of the things. Would you like to have any more? Or?
Yes, well, I think they've already, those have filtered into some of these questions here, and you're absolutely right. I think a lot of people do have an idea of something that they want to do or a goal they want to achieve, but this desire part is not strong enough. And I think part of it can be sometimes that there's just too much out there for us that we can desire, that we can wish for, and so any one of them doesn't become strong enough. It really has to come from inside, doesn't it?
Well, it does, as a matter of fact, and you also have to look at it, Sigrid, and you have to say, what is it that I'm going to focus on? It's the old analogy. If you take a magnifying glass and you're going to use it with sunlight to try to start the fire, if you pull that away from the object that you're trying to, to have the flame develop, you're going to, dissipate the energy, because what we really are is a bunch of energy. That's what we consist of, okay? And our energies are, people, the different philosophies and so forth, but that's your soul, that's your spirit, that's your enthusiasm, and so forth. So it has to be focused, and you have to know what it is, as I mentioned earlier, what you want. But you can't do many things at one time and get significant results. I've never seen it happen. Any successes, any of the building of whatever significant wealth or accomplishment, it had to be, I'm focusing on that project and then get it out of the way.
So
hopefully that helps. That helps a little bit.
Yes, certainly does. I think setting goals that are achievable is something also that I sometimes come across with people, that they think they can't aim too high because it becomes unrealistic. Yet on the other hand, a lot of people aim for something that might really actually be not very logic for them to achieve at a particular point in time. Napoleon Hill really looks at, and I think generally the idea is to look at that you can achieve anything, but obviously you have to put steps in place, and I think that's that part you touched on already, which is taking some action towards it. Is that right? Do I understand that?
Well, that's correct.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And, a lot of times the reason that people fail is that even when they do take action, if they start to have some failures and so forth, they give up. In other words, it's quitting and so forth. And what they're really missing is that, one action after another will achieve results. If you continue to make bad actions and so forth, the law of averages, you figure things out. We're human beings. We're basically a goal-seeking, according to Maxwell Maltz and the psycho-cybernetics material and so forth. He says we're a servo mechanism. Our nervous system and our action systems, so to speak, are wired together. And they're wired together to achieve some kind of a success. It would be like a missile. If you were trying to hit a target and so forth, it has a guidance system in it. And when it locks into and on to what it's trying to accomplish, the ideas, the people, the places, the circumstances, the conditions, all of those things will start to appear. Sometimes it's a rocky road, but if you look at the successes of any people that have been high achievers, whether it be the old ones that Hill talked about, the Andrew Carnegies who were the steel barons, to the Bill Gates and so forth, they just didn't quit, and they knew what they were trying to do. And normally they were not necessarily motivated. The Steve Jobs of the world were not motivated by becoming extremely wealthy. They were motivated by changing the world, the way that things happened and so forth. So, the action steps, it's a matter of not quitting and having the belief level that you can achieve it. That statement, and I'll jump back to it again, whatever the mind can conceive. So you have to conceive something. That's a conception. And believe, and that means that you believe that it's possible. Once that you've conceived it, it's a possibility to achieve it. Well, if you're not able to conceive something, if you can't come up with some kind of an idea, and this is the point that Napoleon Hill was trying to make, if for whatever reason you're not able to get a clear vision of that in your mind, then probably it's not for you. It might be for somebody else, but it's not for you. And that's okay. I never saw myself as being a brain surgeon and so forth. I ended up kind of the backdoor approach, working with people's minds and working with the conscious and the subconscious mind and their belief levels and so forth. But I was never able to clearly see myself in an operating room, so I probably didn't have the raw material to become a doctor. It's okay.
Yes, we certainly are each different and have different, qualities and strengths, and that is really to find out in ourselves what's the right part for us. And I think you can really only achieve that by moving forward and taking actions. I'm going to go over to the slide where the 17 principles as they are in the literature written, and you've touched on most of them already. So what I really would like is if you could give us a brief overview. You've already touched on most of them. Now, if I was to put this into place now so that I can achieve success that I really want to change the situation I have now, and these are in an order, they're written in order. That doesn't necessarily mean you follow them in that order, but give us a bit of a very short overview as an example of something. Use somebody maybe perhaps that you've worked with in the past where this has been applied and how that's worked, James. Is that possible?
Well, certainly. Would you like, Sigrid, would you like me to go down over these 17s and just briefly comment on them?
Yes, yes, and just use each one of them very briefly, James, in how that would work in a practical application, for instance, developing a definite of purpose. Okay, that's, what does that really mean and how does it work?
Okay, very good. Well, the first one obviously is develop a definiteness of purpose. That simply means how do I, what is it that I'm really trying to achieve? How do I want to see my life? I'll give you a good example. I have a client that I worked with who decided that he wanted to be in the real estate business. And he decided that the real reason that he wanted to be in the real estate business is that he wanted to develop a business where other people were working with him and for him and so forth, so that he could provide a beach house for his wife. So he chose the vehicle of real estate. So that became his definite purpose in life, was to develop a successful real estate. But it went back to having the why behind it. Mm-hmm. Establishing a mastermind alliance, the definition of a mastermind very simply is two or more like-minded individuals coming together for a specific project or purpose, in order to achieve it. What Napoleon Hill is referencing here is that when you take two people who have a focused, we'll use Steve Jobs I'm one blank and so forth, but whatever his partner was and so forth, they came together. One of them was a programmer, one of them was a design guy and so forth, and they put two ideas together, and then all of a sudden they started to get more ideas, almost like there was a third and a fourth and a fifth mind, and of course then they attracted other people into their mastermind. So it takes people and it takes surrounding, and you're drawing on what Napoleon Hill references as being infinite intelligence. In other words, the infinite intelligence, which is another way of him saying, the universal intelligence or God, has all of the answers. So when you bring two human beings together to try to accomplish something, you're bringing in all the intelligence that goes along and all the circumstances that have happened in the universe, like tapping into a huge computer.
Yeah.
The idea of an attractive personality is one that's very, very simple. That means that people deal with people who have a personality that they gravitate to. If somebody's an ogre or has a negative attitude all the time and so forth, people don't want to deal with that type of an individual. And they're really handicapping themselves. Applied faith simply means that when you start on a project, and you believe it, you've conceived it and you believed it, that you have the applied faith that the answer and the solutions have to be there someplace and that you'll solve them. Go the extra mile, we've already discussed. It simply means doing more than what you're being paid for. You can't get the benefits from something if you haven't paid your dues in the first place. Create some personal initiative. This means go ahead and do something. Okay, take that action. And my friend with a real estate, and he's been very, very successful in a very short period of time. He took the initiative. He said, I'm going to act on my impulses. I'm going to act on my idea. So he got the right people around him. He got the right signs. He got the right activity. He picked the right market, picked the right vehicles to go ahead and promote his business and so forth. So he has the personal initiative. The attitude, simple. It's a very simple. What's my general positive attitude? You have to have a success-minded attitude. As far as enthusiasm doesn't necessarily mean the jump up and down type of enthusiasm. That's not where we're really going. It's really a belief. The belief simply is that, hey, you know what? I am enthusiastic. I believe in my project. I believe in the people that I've surrounded myself with, and I'm going to help them do everything that they possibly can in order to make it happen. Self-discipline, that's one of the reasons that people don't, succeed. They don't have the self-discipline to establish the mechanisms or the disciplines that are necessary to accomplish something, and they start to get off course. So they have to think accurately is, what are the facts? And it's not one of these situations where, if the dream is big enough, the facts don't count. Okay, you have to have accurate thoughts. And as long as they're accurate, they'll lead you in the right direction. The attention obviously has to be one that's very simple. You have to control your attention. Keep focused on what it is that you want to try to do. You have to surround yourself. Very seldom does anything get accomplished simply by yourself. You have to have some kind of a teamwork and so forth. And teamwork is different than mastermind, but it's the team, it's the worker bees and so forth, that you surround yourself with, just like a queen bee does, and the project gets done.
And of course, for that really helps to have to have an attractive personality to work in a team and with a team. That's a big part that all filters into it as well.
Absolutely. People will do business and participate in a group only when they like somebody. If they don't, and they're still participating, the end result is that it's tainted by a negative energy, and the negative energy will not get you the desired results. It really won't, okay? Or it'll fall apart even if it did get you some of the results. The learning from adversity defeat, we all make mistakes. It's an obvious type thing, but you learn things. And this is a very important point for people to make and to put into their minds, because things do go wrong and so forth. But I'm a great believer that every adversity does have a seed of an equal or greater benefit, and that's really what Napoleon Hill was talking about. Cultivate a creative vision. This is the ability to see things that aren't there. This is the gift that we were given. We have the ability to have an imagination, and we have a memory. And everything is balanced, so we do have that imagination. And if you can see it, you can do it. Sound health, that's a pretty obvious one. You're able to function significantly better when you have sound health. Budget your time and money. Money is important, at least when you're trying to do a project and so forth. Sometimes you can do things without money, but if it gets back to being able, how do I allocate what I have available to me? And that's both in the form of time. In other words, how do I allocate my resources, whatever they might be? In this case, it's just mentioning time and money. And the last one is cosmic avid force. And that's kind of a funny one that nobody quite grasped when they first see it. But the point was that everything has to have order to it. If you have a messy garage, you can't get your car into it, so it doesn't function as a garage. If you have a messy mind and there's not things that are clear and so forth, you can't let things get in. You can't think clearly and so forth. So the universe is an orderly place as long as human beings don't get in and mess it up. Look at a flower. Look at how nature works. Nature is nothing but an extension of infinite intelligence, and it pretty well takes care of itself. Yeah. And it goes along with the whole idea, Sigrid. And we as human beings need to look at ourselves, and this is from the Charles Handel, the Master Key System, is that we need to feel like that we're a part of something rather than apart from something. When you're a part of something, that simply means that you're a part of the universe. You're a part of the universal intelligence, and that you have many of the same attributes. In fact, you have all of the same attributes, maybe just a little bit to a less degree than what this mechanism that put everything together, and consequently, when you have that order and there's not chaos going on, you can build and you can do anything. So that's a very quick overview of those 17 principles and a basic meaning. But you start out on a quest, you apply the basic principles in whatever order, you learn to do that, and things work out pretty well. That's how I've built anything that I've built, and that's my message.
Yes, and it's really they go hand in hand, isn't it? I sort of look at it a little bit like the parts in the back of a watch. You've got all these little wheels in there and the little cogs in there, and they really all fit together. And I think that's exactly like it is with this as well, with the principles. There's not really a 1, 2, 3 order in them. They just have to fit in together, and all of them apply to it. So I think we can bring it all together from here, and I think this sort of sums it up, what I've put onto this next slide there, that really making each of the principles a part of your life is really what it's all about, and fitting them all together because everything works with each other. Retaining that positive mental attitude at all times is important because that creates, as you said, that creates that flow of things. There's no stopping, no hurdles in the way. It really helps to be positive, of a positive mindset. And to me, collaboration is a word that's often used today, where you are collaborating, you're working as a team, where you're working with others, as well as, creating mastermind setup group. In a way, that's also to me a bit of collaboration. And consistency and perseverance are areas that perhaps are not actually taught as much these days from the younger people that I speak to. Sometimes they're not really knowing that very well, but that they are big ingredients in that whole success path, aren't they?
Well, that's right, and we live in an instant gratification soundbite, 10-second soundbite type thing. And if something doesn't happen, right away, people say, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to move on to the next thing," and that's not the way things happen. You take a bamboo shoot, it takes 13 years for the seed to finally germinate, and then all of a sudden you can't stop the bamboo. It grows a foot a day.
Yes.
So, those are the type of things that, so things do take perseverance, and things that are important, will come to fruition. So you're exactly right.
It does, and things do take time, and because our society at large is not really used to that whole sowing, waiting, tendering to the seeds and to the growing plants and waiting for them to be ripe for harvest. That whole process has become you just go into the supermarket and pick it up there. So that whole waiting period and how things really develop is not that familiar. So really, if you want to build the life that you desire and take an idea that you have to a really successful outcome, you may actually see clearly how you can earn all the money you want, for instance, or you may even have started or wanting to start on the path towards achieving that. But here's the thing, life gets in the way. Now, you may need a hand to lift that lid off the box of these success tools. That's how I see it, as success tools, these principles, these 17 principles. And in order to succeed in building the life that you really desire and make that change, you need these tools. So, James, you've worked with these tools over a long time, well, virtually a lifetime, and you've used them yourself, and you've supported hundreds of people with that desire to succeed in implementing the tools correctly, haven't you?
Well, I have, and as I say, it's not an ego type thing. My pleasure has always been able to to guide somebody in the right direction and so forth. And, whether it be these 17 principles or there's all kinds of different material, what I like to do is that I like to make the analogy that it's like a language. And if you blend the words together, you get sentences in the English language or in any language. You're able to, express yourself. You're able to communicate. And these 17 principles are like words to me. And when they're used in the right order, and that order can certainly change all the time, then you get an end result. And things that are lasting, as I was listening to what you were just commenting on, the things that have really withstood the test of time, the pyramids or, whatever it was, they took hundreds and hundreds of years to build, whether it be a pyramid or anything that's lasting and so forth. Well, we don't need to take hundreds of years to build our life. But what we do have to do is that we have to use the right material. We have to use the right foundation. We have to use the right, have the right attitude towards it, and then we get, a life that is lasting and significant. It's really about, when a person looks back at their life, it's a matter of, did I make a difference? And that's really what the important part of it is. And that's kind of what I've always tried to teach. Can I get people to make a difference in other people's lives? And by doing so, they benefit themselves. So that's what it's all about. That's what I've had a thrill of being able to do. I've certainly made mistakes, and I've certainly had a lot of accomplishments and successes, as we probably all have had, to some extent. But I look at it as a big game. Life is a game, and if you play it with the right attitude and so forth, you'll win.
And it's always a good idea, of course, to know and to be shown how to apply the tools and how to apply the various principles. But also, as you've mentioned in your talk so far, that there's such a variety of available material to work through. I think we should offer the listeners the tools and how they are to be applied to build exactly that life, that you, the listener, want. So if you're hearing this and you have the desire to make a difference in your life, and if you have a picture in your mind what you want to achieve, but just somehow it can't get started, or you need that support to keep you on track, check out what we've got below the video. We encourage you to tap into the tools. Ask for a hand to lift this lid off the toolbox and learn to use them to get what you want and deserve. So my call is to you, my offer is to check out what we've got for you, and that's what I'd like to leave it with for now. James, last words to you.
Well, my last words are I certainly appreciate the opportunity to be with you, Sigrid, today. And, I know that this philosophy, I know that, reaching out for help, it really does work. I heard a statistic the other day, and that it was kind of interesting. 34 in the real estate business, people who have coaches and people who have taken the time to, formally engage in some kind of a coaching, they make 34% more income than somebody else. So I'll end on that. Whether it's the income or success or happiness, you can measure it and say, if you want to have 34% or more of something or other, don't try to do it all by yourself. It takes the accountability. It takes, it takes the personality. It takes the friendship of somebody else. So anyhow, thank you so much for the time, and I appreciate being with you, Sigrid. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks for all that detail that you've given us, and we'll see if we can help some more people. Certainly you, as you've already done. So we'll say goodbye for now.
Goodbye now.